freedom of expression in our country, in countries abroad. I mean, yes, in certain ways, we usually crib about the freedom of expression in our country unless we see people and artists from Iran, or and then they crib when they see the Western world because the freedom of expression is more there. Have you ever feel challenged, or you have struggled with the fact that you want to say something through your puppets and you could not say that because of freedom of expression, or you invited a play from maybe from any other country which comes in the international festival, Ishara annual international festival? So you had problems with that?
No, I haven't seen any. Really, I haven't faced that problem. I would say that I didn't think so much about it early days. Today I think about it. If I'm using this color or that color, what would it mean? If things have become more sensitive today and people are less, I find, at one side we say it's very egalitarian, open, but at the same time I find people very at the issues sometimes being raised, whether it's religion, society, gender issues, things like that. I remember in early, what was it, about 15-20 years ago, before the political satire, the latex puppets came on to NDTV, we used to do something called Eyewitness. Karan Thapar used to run for Hindustan Times video magazine called Eyewitness, and India Today also had one, and these every fortnight would come to your door. You subscribe to it, and in that there was a 5-minute program called Funny Things, which was Parliament news, but in the similar one with this latex figures,
like
Muppets, much cruder, not the finesse and the technique that they're using now, but the humor and the satire was sometimes far more biting. It wasn't that, but I remember it used to go through censors. It would go, that if you use a symbol or this or that and everything, it had to be equal for every group or party. Certain, like the president, you wouldn't touch, it was the others. So there were those things, but I don't know, it seems today, I haven't directly faced any problem. It seems today, for instance, that there could be things. Recently, for instance, we had a Spanish group, and it was based on Bernarda Alba, but she called it Bernarda's Backstage, and it was all about women's issues, things like that. Now in Spain, she has this puppet that's totally nude and things, and the way she was moving with the puppet, things like that. And that could have had a problem in a public viewing thing, I would say, if it was done that way. So she spoke to us, and then she made the puppet wear a very light, figure cloth thing, something like that. Now I don't know whether it was right to do it or not right to do it, but I do know that people get extremely sensitive. Though at one point they say there's not a problem, but yeah.
There has been this whole thing in the theatre circuit about that theatre is a vast medium. There's a whole new media thing that has come up with. It has in a way gone closer to cinema, because though cinema has come from theatre, but now it seems that theatre is moving towards cinema with all the new graphics, 4D projections that are coming in. Every theatre director finds something else apart from the performance that can enhance the aesthetics of their play, and puppet is one of them. Do you feel that puppetry has become, in a larger sense of theatre, just a medium to change the aesthetics in a way, and also that a lot of artists, actors, directors feel that puppets are someone that they have to channelize? Whereas I read a quote recently saying that puppets communicate. They are direct emotions, they are metaphor, they are images.
See, it's how you use the medium. Today, things are sort of leveling. Dancers are looking for something new. Puppets are coming in. Masks are being used. In my work, I used I remember in 1980 when I first did one of the performances of folk tale from Punjab, and we had our puppeteers coming out and singing and like actors and all. Everyone said, "Why? What is this? Why actors with puppets? You know, puppets are puppets only." So and then it changed. That became our style of doing things, and now everybody is using it. All over the world, it's been that way. Let's say, if you see, at least if you're talking of India, folk theatre in India has never been so boxed that this is dance, this is theatre, this is, drama, whatever. It was a mix of things. So it was earlier the Western concept that said this is theatre, this is ballet, this is dance, this is puppetry, which is, they also have changed it now, and so we are also again going into that mode. But you're right, a lot of people today using new media, the digital animation, film projections, things like that, and that's the prerogative of the director or the artistic director or the designer, how they want to communicate. Even for me, the puppets are still a medium. I use them with other things, as you see, with actors or with masks or with dance, but for me still as a puppeteer, puppets are the central theme. Very often some dancers want to use puppets, and I've seen that they become props, and that's how they want to use it, but then that is up to them. But and eventually what happens there also is that the puppets start dominating without the person who wanted not that to happen, without realizing that happens, because it's a sort of an objective theatre. And what you said, this quote which comes from Martha Graham, which is quite true, because it is the inanimate, animate, whatever you say, the macabre theatre of the dead coming alive, that makes you intrigued to watch this thing, even though you know that it is not real.
It's like the suspension of the disbelief.
Yeah, willing suspension of disbelief. So that plays an important part in a well manipulated puppet. If it is just performing and just moving around and shaking, it doesn't work that way. It becomes quite bad. But I have just used once in a piece called Transposition, some digital animation which was done by Vishal Dar. I remember he did long ago, 2001, 2002. After that, I haven't used electronic media to that extent. I've used projected, I've used OHPs, things like that, but that's still very manual. I find that still in my control. I like to do that because if you're using technique, you have to master that technique. I haven't. And very often we do that without realizing that other countries in the world are doing it far, far more better. We try to get away sometimes by saying, oh, but we are expressing things, we are saying it in a, it's not the look of it, but what we are trying to say, things like that. But if you're using technical stuff, then you have to be able to use it well.
Also, the expression for actors and for puppets, and though theatre is an exaggerated form, because it really needs to reach out to the people who are watching it. I've also witnessed that because our theatre, our acting comes from Natya Shastra, which is also a form of dance and other whole techniques of expressing and being loud. Do you think that sometimes also in theatre with puppets, the concept of less is more is prevalent?
It is.
It is?
Yeah. Definitely it is, but it again depends on how the director uses it. I mean, there were about 15-20 years ago, there were large things with puppets and they were imitating live theatre in miniature, and people said, wow, look how near it's realistic, this, that and the other. Today it's not like that. Today a lot of puppetry is being on the world stage. The biggest success story which has been going on is The War Horse. I mean, not the film, but the stage play. I mean, the South African company has made it a business. They're making these horse puppets and they're going all over the world to different stages, and they're beautifully moved. If anyone's interested, they can go to some clip on YouTube and see this thing, which is totally an artificial looking large horse with strips of leather and all, and you're seeing the puppeteers move it, and the way the puppeteers move and the way the horse moves. I haven't seen the show, but they say that it's so powerful that you're almost in tears in the end, that then the puppet dies. The other big thing is The Lion King. Julie Taymor, a very, very famous puppeteer who had her bases in Indonesia, things like that. She created that, and it's going all over the world again, where she used masks, puppets, things. So everywhere there is, someone trying to do something with puppets. There's an Indonesian famous puppeteer, Imajis Sida. I think he lives now in Australia. He's been doing grand productions with traditional shadow puppets made larger and projected image, dance, things like that from his own tradition, but he's used technique in a slightly big Broadway style. So when you have the opportunity, what you do with it, it depends very much on you. The contemporary modern puppeteers are all urban based, more or less, at least in India. So their issues, their things will be focused on that. We have far more number of traditional puppeteers who are living in the rural areas, in villages, and they are the ones who also need to see new things, you know, which happens during our festival. Try to see what can be done even within the tradition, keeping the tradition alive, as they say.
How different it is, for example, Rajasthani folk, maybe Katputli that we usually call them, to a modern urban Delhi puppeteer. Their work, their priorities, their issue is, and the form that they choose. Is it very different from each other to understand each other and come to a kind of a level whereby the form becomes common, or it's still very different from each other, and or it's kind of a rebel attitude from the modern urban theatre, puppet theatre makers, to not to go to the folk form, because that has been done since a lot of time. They are more influenced by the Western ideas, Western things, maybe more individual stories which go deep within people.
There are a lot of, let's say, there are quite a few traditional Indian puppeteers who are doing new work as well. Some of them very good, some not being able to handle it. They do a new theme, but they do not know how to dramatize it. They have problems. Which facility or which aptitude the modern puppeteer has sometimes more than the traditional puppeteer, depending on where they're situated. So I wouldn't say the language is the same, whether it's a 2-string Rajasthani puppet or whether it's a modern puppet with 20 puppets. So it is a continuation. The tradition is rooted in its society, in the look, in the state, the language, music, as well as the family. While as in the modern puppet theatre, it's not that much. Though today, even in the modern puppet theatre, you have 2-3 generations in Europe or sometimes in Asia who have been puppets, and they have created their own style. So that also has become like a tradition. But for me, I don't like to distinguish. I would say a good performance is a good performance, whether it's tradition or it's modern, and a bad one can be also bad traditional performance. It need not be just because it's traditional, it's a good, you know, thing. And so also in a modern thing. And all of us at points do terrible performances as well, which fail. And sometimes you have a flash in the pan which works. So it's like each person has to see how they use the art form. We can't. A lot of us in the traditional form and all are saying that yes, it is true, overpowering by new media, film, this, that today is so strong, so nobody comes to see the thing. But given a chance or a platform, like we have our festival, and as I said, it's more urban, it's in the ticket suburb, there's that, people who come to see it, a certain group. But there is an audience. It's not that there isn't an audience to see that, whether it's in the city or in the village. In fact, there are more people in the village to see traditional shows when there's a good performance and the quality of the performance, the music, the dialogues, everything are good. There is an audience. What again, as I said, you have to be able to upgrade your skills also. Traditional performances need to do that. Traditional performance, production quality, editing, whatever. One is ritual performances, which may not be able to be touched, but there are other things that they do. Younger traditional puppeteers are wanting to make new stories, so that would be there. There is a need for improvement, and at the same time, traditional has to be nurtured as well. It's not easy to survive, so they have to be given more chances, they have to be given more platforms to perform. In India also the problem is language, though that's a very good thing that we have that many languages and cultures, but if a performance from South India comes to Delhi, I might know the story. I might know the story, but I'm not listening to the nuances of the text. So those are things which have a problem. Or even if a performance from Bengal, if it comes from Kolkata here. So we are stuck with Rajasthan in this belt because of
the language.
And also in Hindi we say Kathputli for puppet, which is not right. Kathputli is only from Rajasthan. Is the term for a Rajasthani puppet. Tolu Bomalata, whatever, would be Andhra Pradesh shadow puppet, or Danger Putul would be rod puppet from Bengal. So there are different words in different languages, and people don't. In English, you have this generic term puppet. Here it would be Putul or Putli or things like that. It's the same, maybe puppet, Putul, but it's more like a doll or a figure. So it's how you want to use it and how you want to do it that is important. And there are some very good traditional puppeteers in India. They are excellent, who are technically very, very good. Some of them, due to their exposure and travel, have been able to see production qualities of other outside groups and have improved their skills, because otherwise just shaking a puppet is not making the puppet, the look of the puppet, the movement, all that counts. In fact, sometimes it's more difficult. A human actor is using his or her own body, and there's one thing. Here you have to be skilled, you're moving something, you're trying to control yourself and move that. So if you make your puppet also, then you have to be skilled enough to be technically good to make or to carve or to sculpt, color, voice, all that comes in. A lot movement with music, that's also very important.
Sir, do you have a dream or a vision of a production that you want to really make, create, and which is a lot of your vision that you've been trying to do? But
I don't know, each time you make something, it is a dream. You want to do that. Once it's over, then you're looking for the next dream. So I don't know. We just did this whole Heer Ranja, which was called, our version was called Heer Ke Waris, which was written by Mahip Singh. And Harpreet did the music, and we had dancers, Monu, Shailaja, our puppet group. That was a dream. To do that. It happened, and now it needs much more work, because it became, though it's very simple, it's extremely complicated. The earlier puppets, some of the performances were more elaborate, and I thought this would be, but it's not. And visually it's beautiful, but it needs a lot of work. So each time now, when you make one performance like this, it's like giving birth, you know, everything goes into it and then it's over. Then after that, you're wondering what next. So now I'm going to trying to do something very small, something more intimate on the table, a fun show like a circus or something like that. We'll improvise with the group, you know, that way.
Yeah. So all the best with your journey.
Thank you.
And with beautiful puppetry that we can see in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.